Hello and welcome to the Upside with the Fourth Floor. My name is Sarah Feingold and I'm a co-founder of the Fourth Floor. Women have a hard time getting board seats. Women have a hard time raising money to scale their companies. The Fourth Floor brings vetted female founders and professionals together so we can increase the number of women on boards, be more competitive fundraisers, and create wealth. Check out thefourthfloor.co for more information about events and membership and to join our mailing list. And please follow us on LinkedIn and comment on our content. That helps with the algorithm. We're all fighting the algorithm. Today, I am so thrilled. We are chatting with Kate Cartini of Cloe Capital. She's a VC, and this is part of our series, The Upside. We are having conversations about how a major crisis can reorder society and how we as a community can harness and promote the better. This is The Upside. We are talking with Kate about doing well by doing good, 2 cents with a VC. So thanks for joining us. Kate, take it away.
Thank you so much, Sarah Cat, for having me here. I love to see we've got Devin on the line here as our ambassador representing, so we appreciate you. Sarah, if you wouldn't mind, could you do a screen share and let's start with some slides? Well, there is me. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kathryn Cartini. I'm the co-founder and partner at Cloe Capital, and I consider myself a service-oriented VC who uses a lot of hustle and heart to help others succeed. In addition to Cloe, I'm the COO of a family office-run nonprofit, and in partnership with HubSpot, a marketing firm, Peacock Media, helps attract attention for high-growth businesses and brands. So along with my partners at Cloe Capital, we're now sounding the alarm for justice and equality. Because right now, female founders of high growth companies still receive only 2% of venture capital funding in the US, while African American female founders receive just 0.2%. Which really doesn't make any sense when study after study shows that companies led by women pull in more sales, exit faster, and produce greater returns for investors. What's more, experts say that if women and men participated equally as entrepreneurs, we could boost the global economy by $5 trillion. With this kind of impact and opportunity staring us in the face, we just couldn't sit back any longer. Cloe Capital is a seed stage venture capital firm that invests in women-led companies. Because how are female founders ever going to receive funding with so few women investors writing checks? Oh, that's right. See that? Only 11% of decision makers at US-based firms are women. So we moved that capital and we're trying to make opportunities available for women on both sides of the table. And that's why we set out on a national tour in partnership with foundations and universities and corporations to raise millions for female founders together. Of course, none of this happened overnight. Cloe Capital Fund is actually our third investment vehicle after about 2 years of preparation. Our first investment was in late November of 2017. Kim Gamez is an international businesswoman and busy mom. She founded Mi Padrino to help members of the Hispanic community plan and afford quinceañeras, a beloved and very expensive cultural tradition. After a small pre-seed investment and access to our network of co-investors, less than a year later, Cloe Capital helped catalyze a $2 million seed round led by The Wedding Wire, a publicly traded company, setting Kim and Mi Padrino up for a potential strategic acquisition. Now, during our due diligence process, Kim gave birth to her 5th child. And at just a few weeks old, Lucy became the youngest member of our movement. So when Kim's investment was announced, she was in the midst of breastfeeding. So without skipping a beat, she covered Lucy with a blanket and proudly stood in front of a room full of supporters. That was the moment when we distinguish ourselves as a true opportunity for women because of the accessibility for entrepreneurs who are busy moms and caregivers. This year alone, in partnership with ECMC Foundation, Cloe Capital has deployed $1.25 million in capital to women defining the future of work and education. And here's how our founders are rising up during the pandemic. Beck is using her prefab home kits to create affordable housing in Seattle and upskill an entirely new workforce. Jana's platform connects hospitals to nurses, and Beth's technology is helping hundreds of teams treat each other with respect while maintaining productivity working from home. We continue to validate our investment thesis as seen in our latest Invest in Women experience last month. In case you missed it, Cloe Capital's latest investment is in Jamie Herbert, co-founder and CEO of BridgeCare. BridgeCare is an employee benefit that helps working parents find and afford childcare now and kickstart college savings for the future using pre-tax dollars. And these are 4 of our investments to our existing portfolio, and you'll see in less than 3 years, Cloe Capital is doing well, real well. We've hosted 10 programs, and our portfolio of seed investments are valued at about $60 million. We're also doing good. All of our companies are 100% led by women who range in ethnicity. In fact, 30% of our investment portfolio represents women of color. And together, we've helped create at least 75 new high-paying jobs around the country. But it's not just the funding that's helping make these women and companies a success. Invest in Women to us means so much more than writing a check. In fact, with over 10,000 people around the world assisting with recruiting, due diligence, and connections to talent, clients, and other investors, Cloe Capital is being recognized as a movement to invest in women. Even celebrities call Cloe Capital the way forward, which, as you would imagine, has helped us shine a spotlight on all these amazing women founders and their innovations. We hope that everyone logged in today will take a moment and at the very least sign up for newsletters at cloecapital.com. This is a great way to hear about new investment opportunities and other happenings in our community, including specific ways in which you can join our movement to invest in women. Thank you.
I'm so overwhelmed. Congratulations. That was amazing. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. And thank you, Sarah, for being a chairwoman of our advisory board. This is something new. We want to thank Sarah for joining us.
Yes.
In this capacity, we are ready to continue to move the needle with you.
Thank you for the promotion. I'm very excited. Thanks. So obviously I'm pro Cloe Capital. There's some sort of attorney, not attorney, but like I'm very proud of you guys. So congratulations on everything that you're doing. I would love to know what inspired you to get involved with Cloe Capital. What inspired its formation?
Sure. So Elisa and I, Elisa Miller-Al, the managing partner and co-founder of Cloe Capital, we live in upstate New York. And in upstate New York, you wouldn't believe it, but we actually have 5 competitions where the grand prize is $1 million. And in total each year, they are deploying $5 million in capital. And then we've got all of these other kinds of competitions and accelerators. So as working alongside a family office who had his hand in a lot of these different initiatives, and Elisa being one of the most sought after consultants in all of upstate New York, we were right there doing due diligence, recruiting, helping people make investment decisions at the table. But what we were noticing was there was very few women that were pitching their ventures, and there were definitely no women that were there writing checks. And we have our friends, right? And we know that there are women out there that have the certain net worth to do this. So we just didn't understand what was the disconnect, and really it was about education. So going back to the Kim Gammis story, is when we first started this, it was purely an experiment. We were really good at putting on these events thanks to our backgrounds in television, film, and theater and news and all of those great event production. So we went to the Mohonk Mountain House and we had a retreat. And we invited our friends from around the country, and then we invited women who we admired from Ostia Angels, Portfolio, Pipeline, Golden Seeds, people who are pioneers in investing in women in diversity. And we said, will you teach us how to invest? And then we had 5 women-led technology companies come and learn alongside of us. And at the end of the experience, we made a very small pre-seed investment, as you saw, of $50,000 in Kim Gamez, a mother of 5 from Ann Arbor, Michigan, who is catering to the Hispanic community. 1, 2, 3. We never in upstate New York would have ever had the opportunity to meet her. And because we pooled our networks together, it just ended up catalyzing that $2 million round. And in the room that day, someone said, I know the founder of The Knot, which is owned by the Wedding Wire. And that's how we made that connection. And then other people said, what's it going to take to bring this movement to my city? And we said, well, we have companies and families and full-time jobs, so we need help raising money, we need help raising sponsorships, we need help recruiting, we need help doing due diligence. And there it was, the movement was born.
And there it was, the movement was born. Well, congratulations, and it's only just started. I want to encourage everybody on the line right now. If you have questions for Kate, please put them in the chat so that I can ask it to her, because I don't want to just take over. I have tons of questions. I have a lot of questions, but I want to make sure that this is valuable for everybody here. I'd like to know about traditional VCs and how Cloe Capital is different.
Well, first of all, knowing that we were not traditional VCs, meaning that we didn't graduate from Wharton and we didn't work on Wall Street. And while we have some exits under our belt and we've been working in technology and for high growth, we, aren't a founding member of Etsy. So, we needed to do something that was going to set ourselves apart and gain ourselves that track record so people could trust us with their finances. And then on the portfolio side, trust that we would be good partners and that we could continue to go out there and raise additional capital for them and strategically connect them with partners like the Wedding Wire, which is a potential acquisition partner. So that's why we're recognized as a service-oriented VC, where we really, again, create these programs and travel around the country and host these accelerator type of Shark Tank pitch events to get people excited and bring in investors very early on and have collaborative due diligence processes. And when investors come into the room with us, we say, okay, we don't need you to pick our investment. You're here and we've given you this due diligence months in advance because we're here for you to put down a check too. And it's been working. So, I guess it's called Melissa, the herd mentality, or just people, the FOMO, fear of missing out, but it's really working. So the face of VC, we think, specifically in diversity and inclusion, is going to be women and minority-led emerging funds that perhaps are raising a little bit less than you would see in a typical VC fund, and they're writing smaller checks, but they're doing them at a bigger amount, and they're adding in a service element to it to create their smart money. So their check becomes smart money, meaning we invest $100,000, but if we can raise millions based on the contacts and the networks that we have, well, that's pretty darn good.
So service VCs, that's
service-oriented VCs.
Service-oriented VCs.
There's a new breed in town.
There's a new breed, yes. So it's not just that you're investing, you're adding a service and you have your specific service that you're adding.
That's right. That's right. It is the power of the network, and there are over 10,000 people around the world that are participating in some way, shape, or form, whether it's they're just tweeting or whether it's they're investing in Cloe Capital or alongside us as a co-investor.
So how can investors make real and, most importantly, a long-lasting impact on diversity and inclusion?
The long-lasting impact comes from making systematic changes within your infrastructure. And that means that in order for you to make more sound investments in women and minority, you need to be recruiting more potential candidates into your pipeline early on. Let's take us, for example. We have about 3,000 people and throughout the 2.5 years that have applied for funding for us. And let's say typically before every program with ECMC Foundation, we had 300 new companies come in that were, again, very specific to workforce and development. Well, out of those 300, we then narrow it down to 25, and then we conduct deeper due diligence on those 25, which is then narrowed down to 10, which is then narrowed down to 5, which is then narrowed down to 1. So when you look at it like a pipeline, almost like a sales pipeline, for you to go from 3,000 to 1 and to expect to have a minority or underrepresented voice in the mix, then you have to have more people in the 3,000 that represent that. Now, of course, for us, all of our companies are women-led. 30% of our portfolio companies are also women of color.
So how do you do that? How do you go searching for your investments? Do you like encourage founders to apply? Like what's your philosophy?
Oh, yes. I mean, listen, I am a HubSpot marketer through and through, and I drink that Kool-Aid. So it really is about generating a ton of content to attract, educate, close, and delight. And once you work your content through all of those different systems, you can actually spark people's attention and get them so excited that they're not only investing you or partnering with you in some way, but then they're telling their closest networks and saying, we made this experience happen, we had this much impact, you should give Cloe Capital a try too. So for us, when we first started the fund as community builders, that's exactly what we did, is we reached out to everybody in our immediate network and said, who do you know? And then we asked them to reach out to their immediate networks and say, who do you know? So it really became a huge recruiting campaign of just everyone that was coaching or advising or mentoring or, you know, partnering in somehow with these early stage women-led technology companies that said if they just had a little bit of seed money and a little bit of support, man, they could skyrocket. And that's how we did it. And we got 3,000 applications.
That's amazing. 3,000 applications seems so like overwhelming to me. How do you even start to narrow them down?
Well, you know, they're our babies. Every single applicant, you know, we may not have enough money to invest in all of them, but we are going to try to help all of them. So we have a lot of software infrastructure in place, of course, that helps manage the deal flow. But in addition to that, every time Elisa and I independently screen each single candidate and we score them. And then based on the score and based on what we know about the company and the industry, then they'll move to another level. It's also kind of like recruiting. When you send in your job application, you may not be a fit for that job right now, but because a lot of our times our investments coincide with programs, you wait and see what next program is out. And maybe it's going to be fintech, or maybe it's going to be clean tech. So then we send out another email that says, you've been in our system, you are now a match for this new opportunity. Let us know what you've been working on, because we know how things change on a dime.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what I love about what you're doing is you're using data, and you're also having a lot of people independently coming up with their own data. I did a little due diligence for you back in the day, a little while ago, and I was scoring certain companies of my own, and I saw other people score. So that's what I think is really interesting about it. And I also like that you might start with 3,000, and it might not be a fit for what you're looking for at the moment, but you have the database so that you can reach out to them later. So that seems pretty fair. Like in the scheme of what is fair in this world, that seems pretty fair.
That's right. And then on top of that, when you make it down to the 5 that participate in our programs, remember that we often partner. We just finished a trilogy with ECMC Foundation, $1.25 million deployed in 6 months. That's no joke. Those are real numbers. And Cloe Capital only invested $100,000 in each program in each city that we went to. ECMC invested up to $150,000. So they had the opportunity as our partners to choose our exact investment, to pick another investment, to chop up their investment. And that's how we were really able to move the needle, because of their partnership and their belief in us as emerging fund managers, that we could go out there and we could recruit and find the champions to then pump into their pipeline.
That's great. I have a question in the chat. I'm going to read it. What are some metrics that you can share of how you evaluate the potential of early stage founders?
Oh yeah, that's great. So just like I mentioned, that we as emerging fund managers, they're always trying to look at our track record. And as first time fund managers, if we don't have it, we have to be very sophisticated about how we're showing our value. It's the same thing for early stage companies. So for us, all of our companies are revenue generating. And that's actually a whole another topic of why you can get really great deals when you invest in women, because they're so undervalued and so underappreciated. but we'll put a pin in that. Remember, I told you the sauciness was going to come out. So for those early stage metrics, if you are not generating actual capital yet, then you can talk about partnerships or pilots that you have in place. You can talk about how quickly maybe it took you to build your prototype and at least get it out into the market. You can talk about your team experience, and if somebody has had an acquisition or an exit before or worked at a high growth company, and if you're really an early stage team and you're just outside of college and you don't have that, advisory boards and board of directors are great for rounding out that experience. You can talk about the grants that you have received and the competitions locally that you've won, and friends and family rounds and angel investments, and even that you went from Kim Gamez, when we met her, she had 50,000 followers on Facebook. Now she's got like 1 million something. So, you know, it's really just finding any kind of metric that you have, any kind of milestone, and wrapping a story around it and leading with that story.
That's so key. And I also have to imagine that you want people to focus on the theme that you're trying to, that you're organized around. Is that something that also you should think about when pitching you?
Sure. So for us, we recruit like coaches 24/7. So regardless of a theme or an opportunity, a specific, like the workforce and development, or excuse me, the future of work and education with ECMC Foundation, if you are a great company, I still am going to screen you, and I'm still going to put you exactly in my hotspots for when that new opportunity comes available. So yes, there may be more opportune times for me to be speaking with a founder when we're teeing up and recruiting for a specific program, but best be sure Elisa and I and the rest of the Cloe team are just always looking for champions.
That makes a lot of sense. What does funding look like today, like in this moment? And then what do you see the future of funding after COVID maybe eases up a little bit?
Sure. So right now, especially when the lockdowns happen, it was a little disappointing to see the larger funds out there stop deploying capital and saying we need to start thinking about our portfolio companies at hand and what they may need. And from a purely business perspective, I completely understand why they needed to do that. But also I know that with some investors, they need to deploy that money. Some of it's tied to capital gains and et cetera. So sitting on it when you had already spent months and months doing due diligence on a company and then just pulling the plug out from underneath them, I didn't think it was that cool. So we're now starting to see people with a little bit of egg on their face, especially during recent headlines for diversity and inclusion. And, you know, if that's what it takes to have an embarrassing moment, then that's fine. I've had plenty of them. It's time to say, listen, we were scared. We're not spending our own money. We're spending other people's money. We thought we were making the right choice in terms of fiduciary responsibility. And thank you, Cloe Capital, for continuing to deploy that capital, because it seems you've shown that every single one of your portfolio companies are now exceeding expectations because they're SaaS enterprise platforms and they ran into the fire. And because they ran into the fire, our portfolio companies are going to make it out the other side, and they will see the upside in the next boom.
I have no follow-up questions for that one, but okay. So I have a question that came to me privately. What percentage of applicants get funding?
So for us, it's a very small percentage. We are a fund right now that's raising a fund. So we have deployed 1.2 million or 1.25 million with ECMC Foundation. In our last program, it was really wonderful because there was a third company that received a $25,000 impact investment. One of our co-investors, K. Paul Singh, who's also a board advisor for ECMC Foundation, literally whipped out his own wallet. And we love to see that. So, you know, the numbers we need to get better at, but that's only going to be us raising more money, and we're getting there.
So what do you have, like if somebody wants to pitch you today, what are some like tips that you have for a founder, or some warnings of things that they absolutely should not do?
Yeah, just do a little research, man. I mean, it's going to save you time. It's going to save them time. It's going to save everybody's time. All of our information is either on the website, all investors. It's either on your website, it's on Crunchbase, it's on AngelList, on LinkedIn. I mean, you know if somebody only invests in women. You know if somebody only invests in ag tech. You know, it says there what their investment thesis is. So why would you waste time hunting down an investor just to pitch them when you know that their hands are tied and they've already said to their investors that this was their investment thesis. So it's not like they can just be like, whoa, this founder is so amazing, I'm going to drop all of the legal paperwork that we've just put together on our fund to invest. It doesn't work that way. It really is a business. So if you can just use some very free, and these are free tools like a CRM system, there's a lot free, Nutshell has free, HubSpot has free, find that, or at very least open up a Google Sheet and just start writing down who your top investors are, what stage they invest in, who maybe are some companies they've invested in before, so you can see if you kind of fit their mold, you know, all that type of work. Crunchbase, you can even find a lot of that out on a free account on Crunchbase.
And you've seen this, you've seen people put together like pitch decks for you, and you're like, you're a bunch of
constant. Every day we get an email or somebody from LinkedIn. And then you know what they say? They say, well, you're an investor, so I thought you could connect me with someone. And that's when quietly steam starts coming out of my ears, because if anyone really knows me, you know that I'm working 100 hours a week, that I've really sacrificed a lot of myself to this movement. And when it comes down to people just being lazy and not doing their homework about investing, who to pitch as an investor, and you are now wasting my team's time to say, well, I thought you would know someone. Well, you're right. Let me throw away everything aside and just help you raise this fund. I'm not going to do that anymore. There used to be a guilt in me, and I used to figure it out and find a way and say, you know what, if they were bold enough to reach out to me on LinkedIn, then I was going to try. But then a pattern started emerging, and it wasn't that they were doing research to reach out to me on LinkedIn. They were creating LinkedIn ads or whatever that had a bot, and because I had investor in my title, I was getting the message. So why was I uprooting my life and reverting the tract of our sales methodology for me to help someone that really didn't want to be helped?
Right, because time is money, always.
Yeah.
And you can't help everybody, and if they're not going to do the right research, what are you know? So how do you say no?
Right now, okay, here's exactly how. I have a hard time saying no. Hopefully some of us on the call do, and we can talk about that as well. But we really worked hard after our last event to do a website refresh, and it includes an investment thesis page, and it includes a more clear page where people can apply for funding, and that funding page has an FAQ. So if and when someone reaches out to us and I know that they're not a fit, it's still the same response. You have to get into the system anyway for Elisa and I to start the screening process. So it's, you know, look at this page, look at this page. If you feel that you are a right match for us, then I look forward to learning more, period.
That's so classy. And that's probably what you say to people, even, you know, if you do want them in your system, like go to this page and get through the system.
It's systematic, but it has a little bit more heart.
That's amazing. I love that. And I think that being an entrepreneur and saying no and how to say no is really important too, because you have to focus on your mission and just push everything else aside if it doesn't align. Otherwise, you're just going to drown in all of this other stuff.
It's so hard. I struggle with it all the time because you never know when that next opportunity is. And also, we're in the business of not profiling. So how dare I not have a conversation with someone or entertain something if, again, they're making the effort to reach out to me. At least I think that on the fundraising side, certainly. But this is a very specific case that you asked about when it comes to pitching. And again, if you are a male founder and you don't have a female anywhere on your executive team, why?
Yeah, why? And that's a question to ask them, like, straight out. How do you research the industries that your applicant startups are in to make yourself knowledgeable?
Oh, yes. Thank you for asking this. A lot of times you'll see funds are very focused on our specific vertical, investment vertical, like clean energy. But for us, we're industry agnostic as long as you're tech and tech enabled. And again, if you look at our portfolio companies, it shook out this way. They're all SaaS enterprise. They were performing the fastest, the better. So for us, it's really a reliancy on our community. And that's why we have an open due diligence process. In addition to Elisa and I, who conduct the business interviews and are looking at the founders particularly and their leadership skills and the market size, we also have a committee that handles finance and competitive analysis and technology. And then in addition to that, we have tons of co-investors who want to see these early deals too, and they're throwing in their expertise and their due diligence. And then of course, the third component is we're always looking for a strategic partner, a strategic corporate partner. So who better to investigate HR than TriNet or, finance than Northwestern Mutual? I mean, you have to just find those strategic partners.
Is there ever a time that there's a big disagreement in the team about the due diligence that was conducted?
Never yet. Never yet. The reason why is because we have a very clear investment thesis, and that we are also looking for a very specific type of founder. And, I'll go back to Kim Gamis. She's a mother of 5. If she can do that, this woman can literally do anything, and she can. She had Lucy during her due diligence process. She said, "Ma, I've got $6,000 in the bank, so you got to come with me to upstate New York because obviously I'm still breastfeeding," and she just made it work. So there really is a common thread when you look at the founders of the Cloe Capital portfolio company. All of them have overcome some kind of obstacle to get to where they are today, and now they're in a position where they're staying humble and they're trying to help the women alongside of them.
Could you just give your investment thesis one more time? Because a couple people might have been late to the talk.
Sure. So Cloe Capital is a seed stage venture capital firm. We invest in women-led tech and tech-enabled companies in the US and Canada. We are also interested in investing internationally, so please apply globally as well. Our industry is diagnostic, again, as long as it's tech and tech-enabled, and we typically make investments alongside of our programs and strategic partners like ECMC Foundation, and that's why the last 4 investments that we made were in the future of work and education. But because Cloe Capital is a true blue fund, we don't need to invest alongside of our programs, and we can just make investments. So we're going back to what people were saying about, should I be pitching you if you have a program specifically? No, because at any time, Cloe Capital can say, we want to invest in you outside of a program.
Thank you. I have a very specific question about alcohol e-commerce. It's a rather new field in the States. Is Cloe permitted to invest in a business that works with alcohol?
Yeah, that is a super good question. And we get asked about cannabis a lot too. As a matter of fact, Melissa, in Left Tackle, right? Courtney was just asking about the cannabis question. For us, we've not invested in any vice type companies. And when I say vice, I mean something sexual or alcohol related or marijuana, cannabis related, or it's not out of our theme, but it's something that we are really treading a fine line on. Cannabis specifically, just because it's not legal. And we work with a lot of family offices, and we certainly do not want to make them uncomfortable. They're trusting us with this opportunity. So while we may have to be a little conservative when it comes to certain things that we can invest in as a first fund, that's what building a track record is all about. So when we go out to raise our $100 million fund, we have people's trust that we can go into some of these other areas should the stars align and it makes sense for all of our investors.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. I have a question in chat, and it's a little bit long, but I'm going to read the whole thing. I've been told that most investors know that women and minorities tend to be conservative in their numbers, such as hockey stick growth being more realistic. I have also been told that they need to readjust what investors expect to see. Do you also expect your founders to be aggressive in their numbers, even though you know that women and minorities tend to be more conservative?
Yeah, I don't like smoke and mirrors. So that's not what I'm looking for at all. I'm looking for the facts. And if there is a little bit of a hole somewhere along the way, I want you to tell me what that hole is, so I have purpose and value, and I can look into the Cloe network and see where we can help you. So if your numbers warrant a certain discussion, which is we're not generating revenue yet, then that's okay. We go back to our prior discussion about where other milestones you can highlight. And if you have an accounting firm or other who has done a valuation on you, and you now say that you have a $16 million valuation, well, I'm going to dip into that a little more, and I'm going to look at the competitive landscape, and I'm going to see how you stack up for that.
So how do you define a seed stage?
Sure. Seed stage for us means that you are generating revenue. It means that you've already done a friends and family round or had an infusion of angel investors or maybe grants and won some competitions. It means that your prototype is ready and it's already in market and you've already validated in some way because you've created a dollar. Okay. Let's not get crazy. I'm not looking for, a 10,000 a month return. I just get into the market and show me somebody wants to buy it, So for us, that's really what seed means. Our valuations hover between 2 and 6 million. And as I mentioned, all of our companies are generating revenue because they have some kind of pilot programs or strategic partnerships in place.
What is the size of Cloe Capital's fund?
We're raising a $25 million fund. We had our first close a few months ago, and that's why we were able to deploy the capital alongside ECMC. And that's when we made our first 4 investments of the fund, which are all in the future of work and education, as you heard in the pitch. But for some of you that might have come a little bit late, Beck is in Seattle, and she's doing those prefab home kits, and she's upscaling an entirely new workforce. So when we think about right now, the people that are out of work and suffering the most, it's service industry. She has the ability now to teach people, just like a coding camp would teach someone to code. She has the ability to teach people how to put together these very IKEA-like type homes, so you can order one and have one within a week. And then we've got Jana, who's out of St. Louis. She just got accepted to Techstars, Kansas City. And Jana and Rodney are, they have a platform that connects nurses to hospitals. So right now, during our nursing crisis, when there was such a shortage, she was able to activate her labor marketplace and find women and male nurses, find nurses who had either retired or they were taking a leave of absence and pull them back into the system. And not only impact hospitals within the St. Louis area, but then she started crossing state bounds with all of this, and she just launched in 2019. So her and Rodney really rolled up their sleeves to do some powerful good for the community. And then, Sarah, we like to talk about Beth over at Riff Analytics. I mean, right now, I'm sick of being bullied in my conversations with men. I'm sick of men talking over me. I'm sick of them mansplaining me. I'm sick of it. So what Riff Analytics will do is in remote situations, it will analyze your voice and text data, and it will send you a little reminder if you are being sexist or if you, again, are talking too much and not giving someone else a turn. And now a manager can get a report that helps them learn what personal or career development a certain employee may need. And at the end of the day, it just helps with the culture and it helps the remote teams work more productively. And then of course, Jamie with Bridge Care, I mean, you can't get more relevant than this right now. It is literally an employee benefit for working parents that helps afford and find child care and then kickstart college savings, and you're using your pre-tax dollars just like you would with a 401k match.
How important is it that founders graduated from a vetted incubator program?
It's not important, but we are seeing a trend. And I'll tell you that Techstars and Y Combinator has become a really great feeder system for us. Why? Because these are accelerators with a very specific curriculum that are teaching founders how to put the pitch deck together and what numbers and what KPIs are relevant to investors. So it's about getting the ducks in a row, and the accelerator has helped with that.
That's awesome. Is there ever a time that you look at somebody's business model and you think, you know what, this is just not right for venture, and you just come out and tell them that, or will you just kind of keep them in your in your pocket?
Yeah, so I tell. And I have been bad mommy. It's no fun to have a candid conversation with someone who's been working on something and pouring their heart and soul into something and having the courage to pitch a VC and then a VC to just say, you're not for me. Because that's just like dating, all right? I just told someone they weren't good enough in a way, and that's not fair. But it's not that they're not good enough. It's just that you're not a right fit for me, right? Prince Charming is out there. You're just not a right fit for me. We've heard that. It stings. But I feel that being transparent like that, even though it hurts me every time, and it really, Melissa, right? I've cried over it. It's very difficult to have these conversations with people. But at the end of the day, if you're not a right fit, and we talked about how there's only so many hours in the day, then I would rather tell you why you're not a fit for me, be good and at peace with it, and then go and try to help deploy capital to the women who can. And for those that are not a fit, we are all about sharing the resources. We are still coaches and mentors and advisors to hundreds of startups across upstate New York and now beyond. So when I know of a founder that may not be venture backed, I say, ooh, NSF grant funding, SBA loan, STTR, Like I'm always trying to think of different resources that may help them in addition to getting a check from an investor.
And that's really the kind thing to do, because otherwise you're just stringing them along and giving them false hope. I mean, I think it's better to be honest right up front than to be forced to be honest later. It's just a waste of time.
It's
right?
True, but it still hurts, and I've had people get really, really defensive and really get nasty with me and angry with me and even take it out on me farther than that conversation. I don't know what to do about that. I just have to think about the positive aspect or the positive impact that we're having on so many others, and hope that one day I will be able to help that founder in a different way.
What do you think is the area that needs systematic change to get more female and non-binary founders funded?
It's about the lowering of the expectations in terms of the checklist of which was the norm. So as I mentioned, we didn't graduate from Columbia and we didn't work on Wall Street and this and that. So typically what investors are looking for is that domain expertise, a PhD in something, or someone that has scaled a company and had a big IPO or exit, or, all of those types of measurements where it comes to degree, pedigree, relationships, relationships and all of that. And we really have to throw that away. And that's why Cloe Capital has created our own investment thesis and our own checklist of whom we deem are the champions. For Kim being a mother of 5, an investor would say, absolutely not. She would never have any time to grow this company when she's got all of these children at home. And if she chooses the company over her children, then that's not the character we want to invest in. We see that completely different. We see it as a woman who's got it together. And if she can, have these babies in line and in school and all doing well, and her husband by her side, and, all of these wonderful things, we say she's got hustle, she's got grit, she's got heart. And that's the person that I want to put my money behind.
It's really changing the narrative instead of just going with the sexist route, right?
Right. The United Arab is calling.
Oh, excellent. Maybe they have some money for you or something like that.
Maybe it is an international fund. I shouldn't, right? We're talking about those opportunities.
Give them your social security number, see what happens. I think they'll send you some great money. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. How can other incubators, accelerators access some companies that are not the right fit for Cloe? Do you recommend other accelerators to teams, or what does that process look like?
Oh, 100%. We are constantly sharing deal flow. As a matter of fact, I just got off the phone with Citi today, and I'm proud to say that they've got a $150 million fund that's investing in women. And right now they're at a crossroad where they've got Series A and above deal flow, but they don't have anything below that. So she reached out today and she's like, I saw your show. Jamie and Bridgecare is amazing. I reached out to her immediately. Who else should we be looking at? And can you assist us in building our pipeline? So 100%, we're there for you. The city made me want to be there for you for sure. And now we'll help them. In addition to that, Techstars. We, as I mentioned, we've invested in Jana. She just launched her company in 2019, and we were able to make a referral for her to go into Techstars, and now that's happening. So it's really a collaborative process, and that's why we are being recognized more as a movement than a venture capital firm.
I'd love to know your thoughts about taking risks, because, as a VC, you're taking risks, but yet you're doing all this due diligence. Like, tell me about risk. And
it's a risk. It doesn't matter how much due diligence you're going to do, because COVID can happen. So it is a risk. You can mitigate that risk, and here's how we de-risk our investments. We don't de-risk them through that systematic checklist that we were talking about. That's been thrown away. But we de-risk our investments by, again, wrapping our community around them, partnering with strategic investors and other co-investors, making smaller investments, $100,000 investments, but more of them. And then, of course, we had an SPV1 and an SPV2 before we had a fund. So we are really watching a lot of these founders at pre-seed and seed level so they can grow up to that Series A. And now as early stage investors, we've de-risked them to then activate our preemptive rights and invest a little bit more in their journey and help them raise more money. So that's how we de-risk.
Do you see ESG principles being more important to de-risking the companies you invest in?
Yeah, I do. You're gonna get me in some hot water. I do, but I think at the end of the day, every fund, firm, network has to have their own investment criteria. They have to stick by it through and through, and they shouldn't so much be influenced by other people's decisions. We aren't at Cloe Capital. We have a very collaborative due diligence process, but at the end of the day, Elisa and I are the ones that are making that investment decision.
So before I get to my last question, I would love it if everyone wouldn't mind putting on their camera. Could I take a group picture? Could I do that? If you don't want to, that's no pressure, no pressure. All right, look cute. All right. And 3, 2, 1, cute. Oh no, some people just showed up. Let's try it again. All right, 3, 2, 1, cute. Thank you. Kate, this is phenomenal. My last question for you is, the title of our series is The Upside, and we're just looking at the current global situation, how we can influence the better. Given the environment, given everything that you know, given what you're doing, what does the upside mean to you?
The upside means that I specifically, in my personal life and in my business life, are looking for the people, the dreamers, the doers, the risk takers, the people who know that there is good to be done. And this is universally happening to us because we were heading down a very wrong path. And for all of the deaths that have happened, I like to call them martyrs in a way, because these deaths have now are allowing us to rethink what is right and what is wrong and what should be for the future. And it's because of the people that are risk-taking and are going to continue to push ahead and innovate and go into those uncomfortable zones, we are really going to be able to turn every industry on its head. We're just looking at it from a different lens now, a more woman and minority friendly lens.
Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for joining us and for your amazing questions to Kate. And please check out thefourthfloor.co for more information. Follow us on LinkedIn. Give us a heart, a thumbs up, a little comment. It helps with the algorithm. Members, stay connected through our directory, our Google group. Ask to be connected to The Room. This is our exclusive online board seat exchange. If you are a founder and you want to scale your company, get a professional to help you on your board. I mean, we have a lot of amazing lawyers and marketing people and all sorts of people who would be thrilled to be on an advisory board and really help a company succeed. We're always looking for sponsors. Kate, we're always looking for sponsors, and anyone that you think we should talk to, we would love to. And thank you for joining us, and we hope that everyone contributes to the upside. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.